eagle coin is $50 face value, right? And so, and that's $2 billion worth of 1 ounce gold eagle coins at face value, okay? So that's really, what's the difference? It's about 20 times that or something like that. It's like 2 trillion or something. Anyways, it's a lot more because, and I don't know if there's that much gold around, or there probably is. But anyways, so I just, you know, again, when you're in there, like I filed commercial liens and all sorts of stuff. When you're in their venue, you just trump up a bunch of charges. That's all they do. So I just trump up a bunch of charges and start throwing them at them and watch them die for cover. So there's no de jure government operating on the planet. Did you know that? There's not one government on the planet that's de jure, except for the Republic of Texas. Except for the Republic. They're all in bankruptcy. So they're not de jure. Because what happens is they set up a bankruptcy, and once they're in bankruptcy, what happens? What happens when any corporation goes into bankruptcy?
Trustee.
Huh?
It's a trustee appointment.
That's true. What happens to the ownership of the corporation?
It's an abeyance.
It's the ownership, it winds up being owned by the creditors, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well,
right?
In the end, yes.
The creditors wind up owning the corporation.
Yeah.
So who's the creditors in the bankruptcy?
It's a liquidation.
It is.
Taxpayer.
We are.
No, no, no.
No.
Taxpayer's not the creditor.
People.
No, the people aren't the creditors. The people were the original owners.
Financial, whoever they're financially in debt to, the financial.
Right. The international bankers. Do they care about you? Do they care about your rights? Couldn't care less. They want their 5 pounds of flesh. And that's why they pass color of law statutes. Statutes that they know that don't apply to anybody, and that they're hoping a whole bunch of people will volunteer in. They're all under martial law. They set everybody up for slavery. And why do I say that? Well, if you read those old court cases before the Civil War about slavery, where slavery was the debate was always over property rights. Okay? Because if you got a slave here, if he's my slave, and somebody's trying to say that I don't have a right to this slave, well, then that's really the crux of the matter, isn't it? Is whether I have a right to this property, because the slave is property, and if what they're doing is criminally converting your name, creating a corporation with, like in my case, it's named Glenn Winningham Fern in all block capital letters, right? And that's a corporation because at common law, a proper name is never spelt in all block capital letters. And at common law, the last name, the family name is never mentioned. And so what happens is, that's exactly what they're doing, is they're criminally converting your name and creating a Title 15 in the United States. It's Title 15 United States Code, Section 44, unincorporated corporation. And the U.S. Department of so-called Justice admitted it in my case. And so, and they're using that to enslave you. And what they really want you to do is, and I want court cases based on this, is they want you to be the surety for their fictitious entity. They know you're a living soul. They know you're not a corporation. They want you to be the surety for their fictitious entity, and you set foot in that court, or you give them a driver's license. If you give them a driver's license or something like that, then that's saying, yeah, I'd like to be a surety for this fictitious entity. And you don't even have a driver's license. I don't have a driver's license. I've never had a driver's license. I've never had a social insurance number. I've never had a social security number. I've never had any of that stuff. Now, there is a straw man out there that has a driver's license. There is a straw man out there that's got a social insurance number. There is a straw man out there that's got a social security number. But that's not me. That's that other entity. And so I never give them one. As a matter of fact, that's what I put in my documents, is I don't have a driver's license. And I can show them there's some, this is one of the big reasons I keep this address in Texas. Because in Texas, there's some court cases to say there's no such thing as a driver's license under Texas law. And so I tell them that. I say there's no such thing as a driver's license under Texas law, and this is what the courts are saying. And so therefore I won't have a driver's license, but I will have, and I show them this picture ID that I made up in Arizona, and I took it down to the Canada Recorder's Office and recorded it. And it says here, official records of Pinal County Recorder. Well, so that makes it a government document, doesn't it? So now this is a government issued ID. And it says here, oh, it's notarized. So it's verified by an officer of the court. So how are they going to dispute that now? You see what I'm saying? So that's what I give them. And I just filed a criminal complaint against Canada Customs because they didn't want to accept that when I went across the border here recently. And I've got a copy of that here too, if anybody wants a copy for. And the reason I'm giving you copies of this is to see how this procedure works, how you basically serve them with a registered document, or better yet, get 3 witnesses to serve it with them personally, with an affidavit saying that they served them. You see what I'm saying? With a document that basically takes all their presumptions away from them. And then when they violate your rights, you file a criminal complaint against them for sedition, okay? Why sedition? Because they're making war against the lawful government of this country, okay? Because the Magna Carta says that they can't go upon you or do you any harm except by a jure of your peers or the law of the land, okay? And the law of the land is still a jure of your peers. It's a restatement of the same thing, okay? So when they stop you on the highway and give you a ticket, they're making war on you, and the proof of that is they have a military uniform, they have military ranks, and they call you a civilian. And I got court cases to talk about that too. So, is there a price? You know, I spent a lot of money doing this. I spent thousands, maybe tens of thousands. I really have. Recording documents, you know, I recorded documents that cost me, well, there's a maximum fee you can pay, so that's one of the things that saved me, I guess, because I recorded a 500-page criminal complaint against every member of the Texas House of Representatives and the Texas Senate. And it was like 500 pages, but I only had to pay $250 because that was the maximum you had to pay. But I've recorded a lot of documents, and the reason I record it is because it becomes a government document, okay? Courts have to give judicial notice to government documents. Also what happens is, I don't know how much you know about the way regulations are made, but I deal with that in aviation all the time. And what they do is they send out a notice of proposed rulemaking. And they basically give you 30 days to debate their proposed regulation. And after, they can ignore what you say, or they might take into account anything you say, or who knows what they do. They might not even actually implement the regulation. But after 30 days, it becomes public policy. Public policy, okay? And so the same thing happens with the recorded document. Any document's recorded, after 30 days it becomes public policy. And it becomes the same thing as a regulation. And so you can effectively, in the States, and you can do it here, but we haven't been keeping on top of the land titles office, because I think it's land titles. They've got a miscellaneous category down there, so that's where they should be doing it, I think. Although there's been some people that have talked about the Personal Property Security Act. Maybe you can do it there. I don't see a problem with that, as long as the actual document is recorded there, and then you get it back with their stamps and stuff on it, and then you make copies and you serve it on, you know, your public servants. I don't see a problem with that. That might be good too. The point is that it's a way of putting it into the public, okay? Because there's the private, we're the private, and there's the public. The public is not us. Public is the government. And so you put it into the public in a way that they can see it and they can't deny it. And because otherwise what will happen, I mean, I'm not saying it will happen, but it could, and I'm sure it does time to time, where you submit an affidavit like this one to the judge. See, he turns it over. And actually I photocopied this on both sides of the page. So, but at common law, you never do that. This is just so I don't kill as many trees. And so then it's blank on the back, and the judge will hold it upside down like this. And you say, yeah, I got your affidavit in front of me, but I don't see anything here that affects this case. And he'll rule against you. Okay? I know that happens. I know it happens. But when you record it into the public, then all you do is give them a copy of the affidavit. See, and when you want to introduce anything into court, you attach it to a motion, is what you do, or you attach it to the original lawsuit. You can attach it to the original lawsuit too, that's even better. But if you didn't get it on the original lawsuit, or if they're attacking you, you can attach it to a motion. And And then what you do is, if it's a recorded public document, then you say, this document that's recorded into the public here at number blah, 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 a true copy of which is attached here to and incorporated herein by reference in its entirety. Well, now we can't ignore it. See what I'm saying? Now we can't turn it over and say he didn't see anything, because it's, the number is documented, it's in the public, he can't deny it. Anyways, so I spent a lot of money asserting myself, and that's what you have to do. You have to assert yourself. And if you don't assert your rights, you lose them. And I think there's a maximum around there somewhere about that. Anyways, is there a price where it becomes too expensive to assert your sovereignty? To assert yourself, to assert your freedom? Is freedom too expensive at some point?
No.
Not for me, it's not. And I've spent tens of thousands of dollars. And part of what I do also is because there's so many sheeple out there that are so clueless, that what I do is I word my documents so they don't know where I'm at. And so the point being is that it helps a lot of people. And a good example of that is when I was in Texas. I was administrating in Texas. There's a lot of cities and towns, especially around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and so I was doing, you know, a bunch of them, although I had to kind of keep it within certain limits. And I was sending registered letters to the chief judges and the chief prosecutors and the chief of police and the county sheriff of all these towns and stuff around there. And this friend of mine, in Texas, they like to abuse the Republic of Texas, eh? It's like here, they like to abuse anybody that thinks they're free, you know? And so in Texas, they like to, anybody that puts like a Republic of Texas plate on their vehicle or something like that, they go and look for those guys because they give them a hard time and put them in jail and do all sorts of stuff. Anyways, there was one city that was doing this really bad to a lot of people, and so I went and administrated them. and they changed 100%. They stopped doing it completely, and what happened is there's a friend of mine that had Republic of Texas plates on his vehicle, right? And he's driving along, and this cop pulls him over, and he figured, oh no, here it comes. And the cop comes walking up, and he sees the plate, and he says, oh, he says Republic of Texas. And the friend of mine says, yeah, do you want to see my ID? And the cop says, no, that's okay, have a nice day. I'm telling you that if you assert yourself and do it in the right way, if this is done properly, most of them are just honest, hard-working people. They got somebody that's telling them to go and jerk these people's chain. That's what's happening. It's coming from somewhere upstairs. And so what you got to do is put them in a position, all of them. You know, who knows who it is? Just they're jerks too, you know. But if you put them in a position where you got them where it counts, most of them will come right into line. And the ones that don't, well, they're criminals, aren't they? And if they're criminals, you root them out and prosecute them. That's exactly what you do. So, anyways, let's go on to the next slide. The burden's on you to assert your rights. And if you do not assert your rights, you lose them. And like they say, anything you say can and will be used against you in court of law. So, when the cop comes up to you and says, you know, I got you doing 87 and an 80, like a cop said to me one time. And he says, have you got a reason for that? If I had been on the ball, I would have said, well, you know, I'm not involved in commerce, so what's that got to do with me? But I didn't. I said, nope. And he says, well, can I see your driver's license, registration, insurance? And I said, well, you know, it's interesting you asked for that because, and I pulled out, I had all my stuff ready to go. I pulled out my little list of court citations to say there's no such thing as a driver's license under Texas law, and I said, according to the courts, there's no such thing as a driver's license under Texas law, so why would I want one of those? And then I said, you know, I want you to know, before we get too much into this, that I appreciate the work you do, and I don't want you to take any of this personally. You know, and I do. I tell the cops this because we need people that are going to hunt down the murderers and thieves. I mean, we got to have some sort of government. We absolutely have to. And murderers and thieves and those kinds of people, I mean, I hope they go after them like a bloodhound. And so I tell them that I appreciate the work you do, and I don't want you to take any of this personal, and I'm just trying to assert my rights. And And quite frankly, this is pretty interesting, because quite frankly, you know, I don't know how much they pay you, but in my opinion, it's not enough. And he says, you got that right. So anyways, by then I knew I kind of broke the ice, so I figured, well, you know, but we wound up speaking for about a half an hour, and I told him about my Supreme Court case and about how I don't have a driver's license, that it's got an image on there, okay? Any driver's license has an image on there, right? But what would happen if I took a photocopy of a $50 bill and then tried to treat it like a $50 bill? Does anybody know what would happen?
You'd be charged.
That's called counterfeiting, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
And counterfeiting is a type of fraud, isn't it? And that's why they spell the name on that thing in some way other than common law, isn't it? That's why they spell the name in all block capital letters, or in Alberta, it's last name first with all black capital letters, okay? And that's not common law either, because they have to differentiate between the living soul and their fictitious entity. And that driver's license itself is a corporation. That's exactly what it is. And so I don't have a driver's license. I don't. And so, and by the time we're done, he asked me 3 times, and then he said, well, please keep the speed down. And he shook my hand when he left. Have a great day. And I said, don't worry, in your county, I'll keep the speed down. Once I got out of his county, the speed limit dropped. And so, but anyways, I didn't worry about it too much then. So, anyways, that was 2 years ago. It's about 2 years ago when that happened. That's the last time I got stopped, by the way. And I was doing it all over the place in New York, administrating my public servants in New York, okay? And you see the cops stopping people all over the place in New York. But one time, you know, and people kind of drive pretty crazy there too. I was doing 85 in a 55. And really, I was going the speed of the traffic, but I was like in front of the pack, you know? And I come around this corner. So I wasn't going any faster than anybody else, really. But I come around this corner, and there's a cop there, right? And it was Highway Patrol. Well, I'd sent them a registered letter already, okay? And what happened is, I come around the corner, and there's a cop there, and his cherries go on immediately, right? And I never hit the brakes. I just took my foot off the gas and slowed down to the speed limit, and then I carried on. He never came after me. He never came after me. You know, there's a friend of mine in the States that come up to me, and he told me that a cop came up to him and said, how come my computer's telling me to leave you alone? I think they got me in their computer system too, quite frankly, because I mean, 85 and a 55, come on now. And you know they got scanners that can read those license plate, those license numbers, and pull up those numbers in seconds. And I think that's probably what happened, is you know, they said, don't even think about messing with this guy. I don't know. I haven't. Nobody's ever confirmed that. But I know that they do have stuff like that in their computer systems that says, leave this guy alone. You know, he's not going to be a source of our revenue. You know, and really, if you think about it, what they're doing is they're trying to get you to contribute to their retirement. I'd like you to contribute to my retirement plan. That's what they're doing, if you think about it. Anyways, so anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Because we're under martial law, the courts presume everything. Presume. That means assume in advance. Okay? You ever heard the thing about you're presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law? All governments are under martial law. They're all, every one of them. But that's the nature of government. You know, wasn't it Washington that said government is a dangerous servant and a fearful master? Okay, all governments, even our own government, is under martial law. The difference is that we own it, and they don't pass colorable laws. But when we don't own it, then they pass colorable laws, and they look to us to generate revenue, to pay their owners. That's what's happening. Anyways, if you go on the attack, you can defeat their presumptions. You have to go on the attack. You have to go on the attack. If this procedure is followed properly, the system will deal with the criminals as they get exposed. I can't tell you how many times people have disappeared, you know. I can't tell you how many times this happened. I filed a criminal complaint against Alberta Gonzalez. Alberta Gonzalez, the former U.S. Attorney General. And I attached it to my petition to the U.S. Supreme Court. And within 2 weeks, he announced that he was resigning and that he was hiring attorneys to protect him from the Department of Justice. I have no idea if it was anything that I did. They'll never admit it, even if it was. But it's just amazing how so soon after I do stuff, all of a sudden people start resigning and things, you know. It's amazing how that works. I'm telling you. Anyways. Because we're under martial law, if you're already in attack, it becomes very difficult to deal with. It gets more difficult the further along you are in their process. So the sooner you defeat their presumptions, the better. And the best thing to do, if you get even a hint that something's going on, is start sending out these notices to whoever you think it's coming from, okay? Whoever you think it is. Start sending out the notices that I'm going to show you. I've got some here. This is actually one that I did in Arizona recently. It started out about 6 pages, and now oh, this got an invoice too. I invoiced it. I copyrighted the straw man's name. That's really powerful. There is such a thing as a common law copyright. And so you don't need to have it in there in the matrix, let me put it that way. It's a common law copyright. And so I've seen courts that talked about it. Right now it's 7 pages on this one. And this is town of Star Valley, my son. 2008, I think this is 2008. My son was driving my truck in Arizona, and he went through this town of Star Valley, and they sent him a photo radar ticket. And so I was the owner, so they sent it to me. Actually, my straw man was the owner. They sent it to my straw man, which I got it. And so I sent this letter to the town attorney. I also sent it to the judge, and I sent it to the address that they give you, which is a post office box. And that's all I did. And the case disappeared. And the reason I know it disappeared is last Christmas I got stopped. Actually, I didn't get stopped. I got in a car accident in Arizona. And there was no case. There was nothing about this. They didn't pull it up. Now, they did pull something else up, and we'll talk about that later. But so this is a good example of doing the right thing and it working, okay? Where they just dove for cover. They don't want to talk to you no more, and they go away and leave you alone. And that's up there. Actually, if you think about it, they're very good teachers. You know, Revenue Canada or any of them, okay? Because they grind you through their system. And that's exactly what I do.